Alright, welcome to the video for Problem Solving in Chemistry, Chapter 1, Section 4. So, very important part of problem solving is developing skills in your problem solving. And two most important things are developing a plan, figuring out, okay, what information do I have? What do I need to calculate or figure out? And then implementing the plan. Now, anytime you're making a decision, you're actually doing these things. You might not even think about the steps. You might not be following a prescribed method, but even in your head, you are following some sort of procedure, even if you're not really thinking about it. Like, for example, you go to a restaurant, you have to order something off the menu. How do you decide? You're basing this on some type of past experience. Maybe it's something you've never had, but you know you like something similar to it. And you're making a decision. You go to the store and you're going to buy new sneakers. Well, what color am I going to get? And you do implement a plan because you think, what color do I like? What color clothes do I have? What am I matching it to? So these are all important things. And you have some experience in it, even though maybe you haven't thought about it before. So when solving numeric problems, though, you're going to need to get in the habit of following some specific steps. Today, we're only going to look at a very simple way of doing it. We're not going to go into a great amount of detail or do a lot because I want you to really take baby steps in how you're going to go about solving these types of problems because I don't want to overwhelm you all at once. So today, we're going to do a couple of simple ones. But the procedure. First thing you have to do is analyze your problem. Okay, you got to figure out, all right, there's going to be some sort of starting point. Here's a little bit of information that you're given. And then you'll be asked a question, which is going to be your ending point. And you're going to have to analyze how you're going to get from point A, your starting point, to point B, your ending point. And usually this is the hardest part, okay, figuring out exactly all those steps, what they're going to be. All right, so then you're going to actually calculate. And really, that's kind of easy because if you lay everything out when you do your analysis, your calculations are going to be a piece of cake. And then afterwards, you're going to evaluate. You need to look at your answer. Does it make sense? Like, for example, in the lab you did in class where you had to calculate the amount of time you could hold your breath in years. And some people came up with pretty good ideas of how to go about it, but instead of dividing, they multiplied, and, oh, I can hold my breath for 1,167 years. Well, if you evaluate that and look at, does my answer make sense, you would say, no, I made a mistake somewhere, either in my calculations, but more likely somewhere back here in my analysis. Okay, so here's an example. Let's say, and this is right out of your textbook, let's say you're visiting Indianapolis for the first time and you're going to take a walk, right? And you're going to be traveling a total of 8 blocks. Okay, so there's a piece of information we're given, right? And then the ending point is how many minutes will a trip take if you can walk 1 mile in 20 minutes? So there's a little more information. And then we're going to say 10 short city blocks equals 1 mile. So we have some information here. We can say we can walk 1 mile. Pen's going a little crazy today. In 20 minutes. So 1 mile in 20 minutes. Okay? And then we're told that 10 blocks, let's say 10 blocks, I'll just abbreviate it BL, is in 1 mile. Okay, so what am I starting at? Where's my starting point? Well, the distance that I have to walk is 8 blocks. So I'm going to write that all the way here to the left. Okay, and as I show you and you do more of these, I'm going to want you to always set it up the same way. Because if you get in the habit of always setting it up the same way, you'll always get it right. So, 8 blocks, and the question is how many minutes? So I'm just going to put a little line here because I don't know my number. and minutes. So now I need to come up with a plan. I need to somehow convert blocks into minutes. Now, I don't have a direct way to do it, so I'm going to have to do a couple of steps. And I always like to work backwards. So what I do is I look for, okay, minutes is going to be in my answer. And I have minutes here in one of these. So I'm going to have some type of ratio of minutes to mile. But since minutes is up on top here, because this is kind of like saying how many minutes over 1, I know I have to flip this around so minutes is up on top here. So over here, I'm going to write minutes per mile. When I look at it, it's 20 minutes to 1 mile. See, 20 is in front of minutes here, so it has to stay in front of minutes here. So 20 minutes to 1 mile. Okay, so now, the other thing I know is that it's 10 blocks to 1 minute. I'm going to want to get rid of blocks, so I'm going to make sure I put blocks on the bottom here. So I'm going to say, put my line there. Sorry, 1 mile to 10 blocks. Okay, that's all my analysis. Next, I'm going to calculate. The first thing I'm going to do with calculating is cancel out whatever units I can. This 8 blocks, since it's by itself, it's the same as saying 8 blocks over 1. So blocks on top, blocks on the bottom, I can cancel them. I have miles on top, I have miles on the bottom, I can cancel them. And I'm going to be left with only minutes. And that's what I want for my answer. So for now, my math is easy. 8 times 20 is 160. Divided by 10 is 16. So my answer is going to be 16 minutes to walk 8 blocks. All right, I strongly recommend rewind that and watch it a couple of more times to go through all the steps. I'm going to do a couple more examples, but I really recommend, if you can find the time at all, to watch each of them a couple of times so it starts to sink in. Okay. All right, so next, using that same information we had there in the sample problem, how many short blocks can be walked in 48 minutes? Well, we're given 48. And so 48 minutes. Sorry about the end there. And we're going to have to come up with how many blocks. Okay, so here I'm going to have to think. We know how many blocks per mile. And we know how many miles per minute, or really how many minutes per mile, but we want the miles on the top. Okay, so we have 10 blocks per mile, and we have 20 minutes per mile. And now we can start doing our calculations. Our minutes cancel, just like that. Our miles cancel, just like that. And we're left with blocks, so we know we're good. 48 times 10 is 480. Divided by 20 is 24 blocks. Same thing as before. I recommend going back, watching it again. Okay, one more practice problem. So now we're going to say, let's say there's an ice cream shop 6 blocks north of your hotel. How many minutes will it take to walk there and back? Now, a key thing here to remember is to walk there and back. Now, we're assuming that we're calculating just the amount of time walking, so we're not going to take into account the amount of time you might stop, have some ice cream, and whatever. So if it's 6 blocks there and 6 blocks back, so the information we have now is a total of 12 blocks. And we have to calculate how much time, and in this case, it's always been how many minutes. Okay, well, same as the other problem. We know the amount of minutes per mile, which is 20 minutes per mile. And we know the amount of blocks per minute. I'm sorry, I have the amount of blocks per mile. It says blocks on the top here. We want it on the bottom here. And don't forget, same thing. This is the same one. And we know it's 10 blocks per mile. So, see if we set it up right. We can cross out and cancel blocks. And we can cancel miles. We're left with minutes on the left, minutes on the right. Yay. And from there, some basic math. 12 times 20 divided by 10 is going to be 24 minutes. And same as before, I recommend back it up, watch it a couple of more times just to make sure it all makes sense.